We delayed as much as possible activating payment by card in the app, which is a bit, contradictory versus what people do, right? You always try to promote digital payments, seamless payments, exactly, etc. For us, we delayed that opening so drivers can get cash on every ride. So they are more motivated to take those rides. They serve the customers better, etc. So that's a free hack we had, for example, to get better supply. Although the people who sometimes were annoyed not to be able to pay by card on the app itself, but at least when it's a ride-hailing app, you prefer to have a driver's 2 minutes away and a cheaper price than just paying online, but have a driver that comes 10 minutes after, and you have surge pricing, and you end up paying 200 real for a ride. Even if you paid by card, it's still very painful. So that's this kind of small things we did, and I think we did very well. And this is why Jeeny today has a significant market share in the Saudi market and is a profitable company, despite the fact that it's competing with giant with tons of money.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Postmoney Show. Today we've got Djamel Mohand with us, who is the CEO of Foodics, one of the largest SaaS startups in the Middle East and North Africa. Thank you so much, Djamel, for taking the time to do this. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Most welcome, Zubair. Great to be here.
Right, let's just start with who Djamel is for the people who don't know about you.
Yeah, sure. Look, for me, I'm French, born and raised, been all my life in France before coming to Saudi 8 years ago, which starts being a while now. So yeah, my background. I mean, I did very classical studies in France, business schools, and I started my career with Amazon in France. So amazing and interesting journey. And then I came here like 8 years ago, I would say, in the startup world with Rocket Internet, and it's been 4 years with them, and then launched Kitopi in the country, and now with Foodics. So in general, obviously, you can see through my journey that I'm mostly interested into startup, creating, scaling, and potentially exiting as well. So beyond, I would say, the whole startup journey at all phases, and that's basically what I do for a living. So now, after that, it's very difficult to go back to traditional business, because you always need the adrenaline and the excitement. So that's myself in a nutshell.
Yeah, when you think of operators in the Silicon Valley or even in European countries, you would come across a lot of these people who have helped launch and scale different companies at different points in their careers. But when you look at the Middle East, it's mostly just founders. You hardly come across people who have played, a very big role in setting these companies up. Apart from the founding teams, and then help them scale and get to a very large amount of revenue or GMV. You are one of the rare people in the Middle East who has actually done that with multiple companies, starting with Rocket Internet, then Kitopi, and now Foodics, and who knows what else in the future. But when I was trying to think of operators in the Middle East, Djamel is one of the first names that comes to mind, and it's a pleasure to have you on the show. I'd like to. We want to discuss Foodics, but let's just start with what brought you to the Middle East, which was Rocket Internet. You came and you were working with Jeeny, which was back then known as Easy Taxi. So, what were the early days like? You were brought in to help with the operations, and you guys were competing obviously with the big guys back then, Careem and Uber, with very little money. So, what were those days like? You were based in Riyadh, and a French who has probably who had probably never been to Saudi before, coming to Riyadh and then helping Easy Taxi, a Rocket Internet company with operations. That's their standard operation. That's how they do.
That's true.
Sending people to different parts of the world where you never have been to, and launching these new cities and all. That's Rocket's standard playbook. But what was all of it like, the early days?
Yeah, of course, that's a very, I'd say, peculiar situation. Look, for me, it's quite simple. I was at Amazon. I was quite comfortable, right? And I finished my year target. I think in July, and it was a bit like not boring for me, but like was not very excited by the challenges ahead. And I had that opportunity with Rocket Internet in Saudi Arabia. So obviously, as a Muslim background, I was like, why not? Let's go there, maybe spend a few months, do my Hajj, and then come back. And well, it's been 8 years since, so the plan quite failed, but failed in a good way. So that's the most important. So yeah, the early days were quite complicated. At the time, startups was not something sexy at all. Even the Vision 2030, I came exactly with the vision. It just launched at the time. So everything was different here in Saudi Arabia. I think the most trendy places were like Herfi and Kudu at the time. For those in Saudi, they will definitely can relate when I say this. So it was quite complicated, but at the same time very exciting, right? Because the mentality here was even more localized, and you had to deal with the people in a certain way, and that was interesting for me. I was not interested, for example, at the time to live in a compound or was living in the city, and it was important for me to discover the people and that expat community that was also very big, that from Southeast Asia, etc. So that melting pot was the most interesting for me. And from the business side, yeah, as I told you, the startups were just like starting in the countries. People were not trusting even use startups, because usually they were facing problems with the service level, and there was not that element of trust and innovation and trying something new, right? So it was quite complicated. And obviously also Uber and Careem entered that ride hailing market where we were in the early days as well. So it was with a lot of money. So it was a little bit like we'd say challenging. But I think what we did well is we never forgot that at the end of the day, it's the ride hailing business. It's a marketplace, right? It is supply and demand, and all marketplaces in the world. Me, I was at Amazon before, and helped me a lot to understand that business. Is to say marketplaces are driven from two things: from the supply and from the customer satisfaction. So if you have good supply, like in Amazon, you have good selection and good prices, and you have a great customer experience, even if you don't do marketing, and Amazon was not famous at all for marketing, you will end up growing. And that's what we did. When Careem and Uber were mostly focused on driving customer acquisition and switching people from offline to online behavior and ditching their private drivers to go on the app. For us, we were really trying to work on having always the best supply, the most drivers, the closest drivers, and the best affordability for people. And I think this is the angle we used and what made us successful, burn very less money into customer acquisition. I think we were spending something like maybe $1,000 per week on customer acquisition. And we ended up doing maybe like 80%, 70 to 80% of Kareem's volume in Saudi with that marketing budget, because people knew we always had the best pricing. People knew you will always find a driver on the app. So that's a bit like we took the contrary strategy to Uber and Careem. It was very painful to be able to go driver by driver, sign them all up, and make sure we always have supply, make sure they are always incentivized. We were doing events at the driver's home. Myself, I slept in the buildings with the drivers in the to motivate the community, make sure they sign up, make sure to tell them that we are the drivers app. If you want to be treated well, if you want to have better payouts, less commissions, etc., we're the ones to go to. We're having dinners, events, played a lot of cricket. I'm a very good all player now, so I know everything about cricket. So this is basically what we did, and this was an amazing journey, honestly, because of all these aspects. Again, competing with people that have a lot of money, like maybe 100 times your money. Try to be more innovative than them. Try to find growth acts was super interesting. One of the things we did, for example, is that we delayed as much as possible activating payment by card in the app, which is a bit, contradictory versus what people do, right? You always try to promote digital payments, pay seamless payments, exactly, etc. For us, we delayed that opening so drivers can get cash on every ride. So they are more motivated to take those rides. They serve the customers better, etc. So that's a free hack we had, for example, to get better supply. although the people who sometimes were annoyed not to be able to pay by card on the app itself. But at least, when it's a ride hailing app, you prefer to have a driver's 2 minutes away and a cheaper price than just paying online, but have a driver that comes 10 minutes after, and you have surge pricing, and you end up paying 200 real for a ride. Even if you paid by card, it's still very painful. So that's this kind of small things we did, and I think we did very well. And this is why Jeeny today has a significant market share in the Saudi market and is a profitable company, despite the fact that it's competing with giant with tons of money. So that's in a nutshell what was the journey here.
So there's a lot to unpack here, but if I just take one point where you say that, instead of focusing perhaps on customer experience on the rider side, you focused more on the experience on the driver side. You made it easier for them to receive payments in form of cash because you delayed adding digital payments to the app for consumers, and B, you were charging them less commission than the competitors. But when it comes to the rider side, and when you say that you were you were at times spending just $1,000 for customer acquisition on a weekly basis, Careem and Uber were highly subsidizing the rides. I mean, if I remember correctly, I used to be relying on them for regular commute. Both Careem, mainly Careem, and sometimes Uber as well, and sometimes Easy Taxi too, because that's what it was known back then. But they were, you would probably get a new promo every other day, especially in Riyadh. I mean, if I remember correctly. So how were you trying to deal with that when they were making the rides more affordable through subsidies or whatever means for the customers? How would you get a customer to choose Jeeny over these highly subsidized options?
Yeah, don't misunderstand me, Zubair. We were very focused on the drivers, right? But as I said in the beginning, the two drivers were to have very good, very strong supply and to have great customer experience. Or rider experience
Right.
was very important. What we didn't focus on too much is rider acquisition, because again, we know
Okay.
that for any marketplace in the world, if you have a good customer experience and you have a good selection and supply, you will end up coming one way or another. Yes, people that are like highly subsidizing, giving you cashbacks, giving you discounts will be more aggressive in customer acquisition. But again, the customer experience and the supply bit wins at the end. So again, if I'm a rider, I know in this app I always find a driver that is close by, and I will always pay the best price, like the best regular price. Of course, on discounts, they go use Careem, they go use Uber. But when it's the regular price, when you are at 3 p.m., it's peak hours in Riyadh, you have surge pricing 3x in Careem and Uber. Even if you have 20 real cashback in your wallet, it will not make the difference, right? You will go for the app that gives you a driver, not no driver, and for a cheap price. So this is how we were seeing the things. For us, we're not working on, like, I would say, first customer acquisition heavily by doing events and billboards and big marketing, but we're working on the LTV of the customer, right? So you always knew that we had the cheapest price. And here, see, this is a good lesson also about flexibility and having the startup mentality. So Uber, when they're changing their pricing, right, they take maybe 6 months of internal processes to make a decision. For us, whenever they were changing the price, we were adapting our price within 5 minutes. So we were always cheaper than Uber, for example, on each and every single ride. Uber, it takes 6 months of internal processes to make the decision of changing the price. We were taking 5 minutes. Every time we see Uber price changing, because these are public prices, we can adjust our pricing within 5 minutes and make sure we are always cheaper on every ride. This is a good lesson on flexibility, having the startup mentality, and the competing in a market like Saudi Arabia, where you need those fast changes and adapt it to the market as well. So again, I would say what you call the rider experience was good as well, because you always get a driver and you get the cheapest price in the market. So this is how we've been able to compete, basically.
Right. Can you talk a little bit about the scale of Jeeny when you left it, which was perhaps a little over 3 years ago? What was the scale of the company when you left it?
Yeah, so as I said, the scale of the company, like we were doing around maybe like 80% of what Karim was doing in the market. For example, I think the company had something like almost a third of the market, which again, like when you compare to the two big giants, what they were spending, the fact that they were still burning money is, I would say, quite an achievement. We grow the rides maybe like 50x in 3 years, and again, like as I said, it was probably one of the only profitable ride-hailing company in the planet at the time. So I think the journey was quite exciting. Was great. Yes, it maybe didn't get the noise that the other two players had in the market, because obviously they were taking all the media space, for example, and all the public space events and big campaigns. But I think I would say from a corporate level, the ones that have been there and have tried to launch such businesses will definitely recognize the achievements we had, and that the company is still having during that journey, because the company is still there and still having a significant market share and still competing and still doing great in this market, and still again having a significant market share. Although again, of course, from a money perspective, it still has less resources than Uber now that has bought Kareem as well. So that's I would say again, it's a corporate success, startup success, although it was maybe a little bit under the radar for the greater audience, because of course of the media space of the two other players.
One last thing on ride hailing, and then we can move on to the rest of the stuff that you've been doing. Jeeny kept its focus on two markets. You expanded beyond Saudi and Jordan at one point, but then exited those markets very quickly. Yes, Genie did, as you said, it did very good as a business in terms of profitability, and getting to 80% of Kareem's business in terms of volume by spending very little money. But why you guys did not pursue international expansion, or expanding it to more countries, and perhaps adding more things on the app? I'm not sure what is there today, but when I left Saudi, Kareem had a lot more things on the app than Genie, if I remember correctly. So why was that the case? Why did you try to keep the focus to very little areas and just two specific and just two markets?
No, I think that's a good question. I think it's about also the logic, right? I mean, the idea is that if you are doing international expansion, there's no point in claiming countries, right? If you say I'm in 12 countries and you do nothing in those countries, that's not really interesting, because you're going to burn money. It's very expensive to enter a country, because you have to build that supply, you have to build that demand as well, and it's very expensive. And the question is that which kind of scale element you're going to have. So Genie was and is still very present in Saudi and Jordan, which are like, Saudi is a big market, it's the biggest market in GCC, obviously, and Jordan is also because a lot of operational teams, the call center, for example, was in Jordan as well, so it was quite easy to access the market without like additional massive burn, right? So that makes sense. Outside of those countries, again, there are only two big countries where we can have a scale effect, right? Which is, we'd say, Egypt and Pakistan, right? And again, there are challenges, obviously, with the currency. There are challenges with the cost of the ride, And it was, I think the company was exploring and is probably still exploring those countries. But again, if it does not make sense, if you are not sure that you can build scale in those countries on reasonable spendings, I believe this is also not interesting to go just to again claim the country and claim the TAM. Usually startups, they expand there because they like to claim the TAM. They like to say Egypt has 100 million people, Pakistan has even more. This is our TAM and this is how much revenue we're gonna reach. So this is our valuation. So give us that money, right? For us, being profitable, you don't have to do that and to claim those TAM, right? You can just expand whenever it makes sense. And actually, it never really made sense from a company perspective to expand beyond Saudi and Jordan because again, because of the burn element and the high risk. It's very difficult, and nobody has done it. I mean, maybe Careem in Pakistan has done some breakthrough, but look at Egypt, for example. There's no big ride-hailing company. It's very difficult to expand in the market and scale in that market. So that's basically the reason. And outside of Saudi in the GCC, again, like Qatar, Kuwait, Oman, Bahrain. Again, we cannot just consider, it's an addition, right? You cannot say, oh, I'm going to do Saudi and I'll do Oman as well on the side. It does not work like this. Each country has its own specificities, its own regulation, its own people, its own culture. You know that if you enter one of these countries, you have to enter it seriously, because you can see all the startup that entered as a side business failed. Maybe only Talabat is entered all these countries properly because they had a highly localized strategy, invested a lot of money in each country, we're deep in the community in each country. This is why they succeeded. So for us, at the end of the day, it would have required a lot of cash resources, a lot of effort. And we believe that, again, like maybe a market like, if you take Qatar, for example, maybe the whole size of the market would be like 5,000 rides per day. What we could do with a good market share, that's something we can do in Saudi, maybe in 3 months' time by pushing a little bit more. And we have that luxury of thinking like this because also we were profitable, because we don't have to raise money, because we don't need to claim TAMs in all these countries and say we're going to be in 26 countries just to get funding, right? And I think that's one of the luxury of having healthy unit economics and being profitable, is that you can have your strategy based on data, on numbers, on logic, on what makes sense, and not only on what you have to claim to be able to have good PR or to be able to claim a higher valuation, right? And that was one of the strengths of the company. And that's why we did Saudi well as well, because we had that level of focus also in the market, and Jordan as well. So I think that's what made the success of the company also.
When you were leading Jeeny as a company, what was the thought process behind, a potential end goal? Because, I mean, as a founder, as a leader of the company, your job is also to perhaps create liquidity events for shareholders in terms of an exit, whether that comes through a public listing or by potential sale to an acquirer. Jeeny, even though it has been profitable, but when you were there, what was the aim at the end of the day? What did that look like? Because it has been going on. I mean, the company has been operational for over 12 years now, if I'm not mistaken, 10, 12 years in the Middle East. But there's obviously no liquidity event inside. So what was the thought process behind that?
No, I think here I have to pay tribute, I think, to the rocket management of the region as well. I mean, the Iyad Al-Qasar and Mahmoud Fouz that were like leading, I would say, that part of the business. For me, I was mostly focused on operations, right? But they were driving, like I would say, the corporate events, like fundraising and all, I would say, the corporate management. I think, look, yes, normally in a normal life of a startup, okay, you would always look what is the next liquidity event, what is the next fundraising round, when is the exit, how do we sell to anyone, or how do we list the company, right? The thing is that, again, at the time when the company was growing, again, like because also of Careem, Uber raising a lot of money there, again, we had to adopt a different strategy. Right? It was not maybe fitting with big fundraising round. Maybe the dilution would have been very high because of that strategy. And they had the experience before funding companies like Namshi, for example, even Hunger Station, like Hello Food before, and all those ventures with that experience to say, look, there's no need to rush into it. It's better to wait. The company is solid. It's better to do one of those liquidity events at a time where it makes more sense, right? And I don't think the opportunity maybe presented itself in the best form all over those years. But I think now most probably they are in a stronger position, right? Where you are at a time where profitable companies are much more attractive with strong unit economics. For example, the Saudi stock market is very strong right now, so probably they have opportunities there right now versus 3 to 4 or 5 years ago, where the local market will not give you the right valuation. Global players most probably are more interested in the region right now as well, both from private equity, VC, and even global players that would like to enter this market because the market is much more attractive today ever than before. So probably they have more luxury of the choice today, and because they waited all these years, not to rush into an event that will dilute the founders big time or will just get an undervalued deal, right? And this because of their experience with the startups all over those years. They were like, of course, Rocket Internet was one of the early in the region, the earliest even in the region, and because of that experience, I think they probably didn't take one of those events, and now they have, again, I would say, much better cards, much better options to carry on, whether in terms of fundraising, potential acquisition, listing of the company. All of those options are much brighter now than it was
Right.
years ago. Although the company has always been successful, right? So I think that's a summary of what's going on that side of the business.
Right. Okay. And before you left Rocket Internet or Jeeny, you were also called in to help with another Rocket Internet company in the region, which was an e-commerce marketplace. And they before they shut down or were sold to Majid Al Futtaim, it went through a pivot, and you were leading that pivot into groceries. I'm talking about Wadi, which was earlier, an e-commerce marketplace that launched in UAE, expanded to Saudi, raised a lot of capital, was one of the hottest startups in the Middle East at one point. But then, things just did not work out, and then the pivot to groceries, and eventually the sale to Majid Al Futtaim at perhaps a very low price from what I had heard back then. So, what was that like? The experience of managing the pivot of Wadi to groceries and leading that in Saudi, and why do you think the e-commerce marketplace failed? Why did Wadi fail, the e-commerce marketplace?
Okay, I'll start with the latest question, the failure of the e-commerce part. To be honest, I'm not super familiar with the details, right? So I don't really want to comment too much on that because again I don't know. So if I had the knowledge, I would maybe comment. But here again, there are probably a lot of reasons that are like unknown to me. So I don't want to say something that will not be accurate. So the fact is again that we were like basically called with the CEO of Jeeny at the time, Eugene, still working with me today, to basically support here, right? So the e-commerce bit, I don't think it failed. To be honest, it was doing good from in terms of numbers. But again, here the Rocket management, they were like, I would say, smart enough to look at the long-term evolution, where it was going, and to pivot at a time where not a lot of other people would have pivoted, right? Because usually when you have a venture like this, doing significant revenues, having a significant marketplace in market share in that space, because at the time it was souk.com, Amazon, right? And there were like things like Jolly Chick and other companies like this. The market was not like as mature as today, and they had a significant market share.
Noon had also entered the market around the same
Yeah,
time, and I
Luna
think,
entered the market, but if you remember early days of Noon, it was a little bit, chaotic.
yeah,
There was a lot of
yeah,
money involved, but especially in the Saudi market, so the UAE market was almost immediately up and running properly. But if you remember the Saudi market, there was a lot of investment done, but the first days was a bit hectic, right? So now it's gotten much better, but the entrance was difficult. But again, yes, because of all this, because of Noon entering, Amazon doing the souk deal, they were able to have the lucidity to say, look, in the long term, it's going to be complicated, or it's going to require a lot of capital to be able to compete. It's better to maybe look at the pivot, right? So we were helping here to pivot the company to a grocery delivery company, because in that space it was a booming space globally. And I think at the time in Saudi there was no real player doing that. There was a player called Zad at the time as well, but there was nobody doing it, I would say, seriously. So alhamdulillah, in a few months we've been able to pivot the company fully, both from an apps perspective, operations perspective, and we had that investment from Majid Al Futtaim to power those deliveries through Carrefour, basically. And the interesting fact here actually is that Carrefour at the same time launched their own e-commerce, right? Their
Yeah.
own app, Carrefour app for grocery deliveries. And at the same time, Majid Al Futtaim invested in Wadi, which can seem a little bit weird when you look at it from outside, but actually it was a very smart play, because they were able to see that, for example, we were able to do up to 2,000 deliveries per day in Riyadh, when in the Carrefour side, which much better, I would say, infrastructure, they were not able to do like more than like 250, 300 per day, right? When they invested in Wadi and they launched their own e-commerce, it was a bit counterintuitive, right? But again, they've been able to see this way, I would say, to compare what's the difference from us, that we were very, like, I'd say, operations focused, operation driven startup people. So quickly we've been able to deliver around 3,000 orders per day, when with their team that I would say came from the FMCG background, the hypermarket background, they were able to do like 250 or 300 with much better infrastructure. So for example, we were basically processing the orders through the cashier, traditional cashier, right? We had one cashier dedicated per store, and they have a whole fulfillment center on the back of the store, so which allowed them to do things much faster. And they saw the difference, right? So when you take that business from a traditional mentality versus a startup mentality, what was the difference? And you can see it globally. I mean, at the end of the day, all e-commerce, all grocery delivery companies that are successful are not the traditional players opening a digital arm, right? Are mostly startups all over the world. And even locally, you can see Instacart, for example, you can see Milk Basket in India, whatever. It's usually like startup players that are coming disrupting the space as well. So this is what they were able to see. And I guess this is why also one of the reasons they acquired the company later on, to consolidate those operations, to bring their firepower from a store selection perspective, image as well, with the operations that we had built, and be able to consolidate all this and have a very powerful offering. And you can see today, even in the market, at the time they were competing with Danube, they were competing with other big hypermarket actors. I think today Carrefour is one of the most efficient grocery deliveries here in Saudi from the online perspective. So I think they did a smart move. And again, here for the books, I would say, I think there's a lesson to do here, because I remember at the time I got the question a lot of times, that how is it possible they launch their own at the same time they invest in your grocery delivery startup? Isn't it like counterproductive? Isn't it cannibalizing? But actually, they did a smart move. They've been able to compare both models and take the best out of both, and now have a very powerful, I would say, it's e-commerce, grocery delivery setup. So that was quite an interesting journey, and exit here ending, I would say, is quite peculiar from what you usually see on the global level.
Right. But when it comes to Wadi, the grocery delivery services sale to Majid Al Futtaim or Carrefour, was it not a fire sale when they did not have any money left in the bank, and they did not have, I mean, Wadi did not have anything to further build on? That's when Majid Al Futtaim came in and acquired all the assets, because the team, if I remember correctly, did not move to Majid Al Futtaim, the team that worked on Wadi Grocery. So was it not a fire sale?
No, no, actually the team moved, the operational team moved. Yeah, maybe the leadership, the management, it did move, because as I said, I think they took the best of both worlds, right? I think Majid Al Futtaim has a very strong management already. They are very strong like leaders from a strategy perspective, analytics, and understanding the business, even from technology perspective, they have strong people. But again, like what the gap that was missing is from the operational side, how to be able to scale. And it's the most important at the end of the day in such a business, is to be able to deliver enough orders, because even from a unit economic perspective, right, whether a driver can deliver 15 or 25 orders, in that side you have a bad business. In this case, you have a fantastic business, you know. So that was very important. This is what I think they consolidated. All my operational teams moved to them. So this was really a good consolidation. Now, from a corporate perspective, you say that I would say the company had no money. It was a fire sale. To be honest, I don't think so, because with what we did in just a few months, pivoting to a grocery delivery company that is doing thousands of orders already with very strong unit economics, could have raised money as a standalone from an investor at the time. When you see what happened after that, globally, even you look at Pakistan with airlift, for example, you look at Egypt, you look at any market, even in the region, how much money they have raised with just like very early businesses. We were doing something much stronger than this. So I think the leadership could have raised more money from anywhere else, from traditional investors, from other parts of the world, to continue that business as a standalone. But it just made a lot of sense, again, because maybe of the previous Wadi history as well in e-commerce, because of Majid Al Futtaim wanting to digitalize big time, because we already had that relationship. It was just, I think, easier for everyone and made more sense for everyone to just consolidate and move on, right? As I said, I think one of the strongest assets, strongest thing with Rocket Internet is that they're always pragmatic. Maybe that's the German touch, I would say. But again, like, they are very pragmatic. See, in one case, they are able to keep a startup company for 10 years without doing any liquidity event. On another side, they're able to pivot a whole e-commerce business in 6 months, raise money, and exit, right? Because it makes more sense. So I think that's one of the main strengths, that pragmatism and that capacity to be able to do the right decision at the right time. And I think that was the main reason behind the sale. Yes, of course, there was an urgency in the situation, but with all startups in the planet, right? At some point of time, you have to either raise money or sell or do something else. And this is what happened today. But the business model that was built in just a few months, to be honest, from a unit economic perspective, is one of the strongest I've seen so far, because now I'm also an angel investor in a lot of business. I received a lot of investment deck and pitch decks. And what I receive in that space from grocery delivery, I rarely see something as strong as Wadi Grocery at the time, to be honest. So I really believe even as a standalone, it could have continued, but it was not the direction that was chosen. And I think it was also a smart decision here.
For the shareholders of Wadi, which were at the time then Al Tayyar, which is now known as Sira, Rocket Internet, and then you had Majid Al Futtaim, which came in later. For all of them, this was marked down to zero. They did not really make any money from. In fact, they lost all the money that they had invested in the company. Majid Al Futtaim, obviously, they used the asset, they got the team, but the rest of the shareholders did not make any money from the investment that they had made in Wadi, originally the e-commerce company. So for them, it was, I mean, obviously not a good deal, but they did not have any choice back then, right?
Yeah, to be honest, again, like I'm not like, again, for me, I was not
This is
handling
this is part of
the
public records, by the way. I mean,
relation.
Al Tayyar in their financials have marked it down to zero, the investment in Wadi.
Yeah, I guess this is public data. To be honest, again, I absolutely don't know the details of the investor relations here. I would say all I know is that again, like, I believe maybe without that pivot, it could have been maybe much worse for them. Maybe they had liabilities. I have no idea on how that
Right.
would have played out. For me, and because there were a lot of things involved in the e-commerce thing, right? Because it has assets, warehouses, suppliers, potential liability towards suppliers. I don't know that side of the business, so I cannot tell you why they wrote it off to zero. But really, all I know is that to be honest, as Wadi Grocery, for me, I consider it really as a success story, because being able to pivot
Sure.
such an e-commerce monster into a agile grocery delivery company that can produce strong numbers and unit economics in 6 months' time, for me, it's a success story. After that, the investor relation part, to be honest, it's very complex. I think this
Right.
situation
Yeah.
never happened any time in the region. what was invested in e-commerce, how it went to the grocery side, and how it was then we got a round of funding in the middle, right, and then an acquisition. I'm sure it was a legal and cap table nightmare. To be honest, I didn't even ask for the details because it would have required me a lot of paracetamol and coffee and energy, most probably, to enter into that. So I prefer to stay in the business and look at really the success story that we've been able to build from that side, right, rather than the whole legal and investment side of things that definitely I'm sure was super complicated and probably like more complex than what was written off by Al Tayyar. That was, to be honest, supportive to until the end. To be honest, for me, even when we're doing the grocery thing, they've been really supportive and they've been really invested with the business and they really supported the pivot as well. So from the financial books, again, what they wrote off is on them, but even on the business side, they were still supportive until the end, until the last day when the company was sold. So that's all I can say here because again I don't have the details about the rest.
Right, sure. I understand. Now, you've been, you were brought into the Middle East by Rocket Internet, and then you worked with a lot of their companies for quite some time. How do you rate Rocket Internet's track record in the Middle East when you compare it to, some other parts of the world?
Well, to be honest, you look, it's you have to be, I would say, balanced here, right? When you look at all the ventures that were created and how much of them are remaining, which is only Jeeny essentially, maybe you would have a difficult feedback, but you should not forget also what was created before. As I said, like Namshi, like the early days of Hunger Station as well, like all the value that was created at the time, which are today monsters that nobody else has done in the region. I mean, except Careem, no one has done such significant scale with startup companies in the region. So you should not forget the past. And also, to be honest, when you look at all the ventures that were created, as I said, the numbers they were producing at the time, there was no, I would say, follow up. There was no, growth stage investors in the region. The VC landscape was completely inexistent at the time. The stock market was not ready to welcome startups. So I believe they didn't continue because of all that. Because to be honest, when I see today a lot of startups raising money and significant round on an idea, on pre-revenue, on just on a PowerPoint, on a very few numbers generated, if the rocket ventures that were launched at the time were launched today, they would all do Series E, B, A, B, C. To be honest, like for me, I was looking at the numbers people were producing. To be honest, put in today's landscape, they would all be still existing today, and they will all like raise more money. And I think this is the only problem with the Rocket Internet journey in the Middle East. They were maybe a little bit too early, so they were the first. There was the first mover advantage, but they had nobody to support them later on. And when I see ventures like they launched, for example, Helpling and Lamudi, Carmudi at the time, other ventures, again, the numbers that they were producing are higher than 95% of what the startup raising money are producing today in the region. And it's a good thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I think it's a very good thing to support the startups today. But at the time, those support was not existing. If you can quote me one VC fund that was investing in startups in Saudi in 2015, yeah, you would be a true hero. All of them were not existing. All the ones that are existing today were not existing at the time, right? I remember at the time, Jeeny had to raise money from Mobily. That was the VC at the time. Mobily was the VC. They had Mobily Ventures, and this is what the VC at the time. Okay, so you can imagine the level of the ecosystem.
By the way, they had made only, I think, three investments, if I remember correctly. Mobile had invested in Jeeny, which was Easy Taxi back then. They had perhaps invested in Anghami as well. And the third was Dukan of Card. Dukan of Card got shut down,
Yeah.
Anghami got listed, and then, Jeeny continues to live.
Not a bad ROI, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, they can claim a much better track record than certain VCs that have done like 50 investments, to be
Absolutely.
honest. So,
Yeah.
but look at again at the time that was the only VC probably in the region. Yeah. So, and it's Mobile at the end of the day. It's not at all their bread and butter. It's a different a beast, I would say. So again, when you look at the journey of Rocket Internet, yes, there are good things and bad things at the same time, but people need to look at really the overall picture and also the context of the time, and not only taking, for example, what's remaining today or what was exited and what happened. Um, Unfortunately,
So you think
people
Rocket
all
played an important role in basically building the foundation of the ecosystem across different markets in the Middle East?
yeah, I think they did, honestly, even from a consumer perspective. As I said at the time, to be honest, when I came, for me, people were afraid to buy from startups. As I said, they built at least some behavior in people's mind. They built like comparables for what came after as well, in terms of numbers you can achieve. They built even the regulatory framework. To be honest, yeah, at the time, people didn't know in the region how to invest in a startup, right? What was Cayman or BVI or like ADGM didn't exist at the time. Like even just on the regulatory framework, like for example on the ride hailing side, there was no license at the time. This industry was not regulated at all, and Easy Taxi came first in the market before everyone. And the Ministry of Transportation and the Transport Authority had to create a license for to regulate that market. So again, like yes, of course, I believe that they helped the region in multiple aspects. In again, like helping people understand what's a fundraising round, what's a VC, what's have that regulation, and helping the global audience to again understand the startup landscape as well and start buying from startups, etc., etc. So they had a positive impact. Everyone, it's a stone by stone thing for me. Even when people ask me about the Careem and Uber competition, I'm glad they came. To be honest, I'm glad I was fighting with Careem and Uber, because they helped as well with their marketing, helping people to digitalize, to go from offline behavior to online behavior. It benefited everyone. What we did benefited everyone as well. So you need that ecosystem of actors. You cannot think about like cannibalization and overlap, etc. But you need that ecosystem of actors to push towards certain behavior, regulation, openness of the market, etc., to be able to have that striving startup industry, right? And this is what you need. So today, for example, I see one of the challenge with the capital markets in Saudi is that you cannot list, for example, a foreign entity in the local stock market, although it's we'd say a Saudi company. Look, a lot of the startups, they choose like British Virgin
Right.
Islands, ADGM as a holding, for example, right? And you cannot list that in the local market, although it's a homegrown startup and company. And the fact that today you have like 100, 150 startups maybe interested in listing, the whole capital market authority is changing the whole listing rules for that, right? And for that, if you don't have like 150 people knocking, nothing will happen, right? So it starts always like stone by stone. And I think Rocket Internet, yes, definitely was one of the first stones in that market that opened the door to other ones. And again, it's everybody has a role to play. It's like a blockchain. No one is the player that unlocked the market. Nobody can say that, but everybody contributed one way or another. You need those for everyone to benefit.
No, absolutely. I completely agree. A lot of companies and people and investors have played a very big role in taking the ecosystem to where it is today. And, it's obviously because of Rocket Internet that there are people like you in the region who are now leading, these large companies and will help them potentially list on local stock exchanges and create a lot of value in the future as well. Let's talk now about what happened after you left Jeeny. So you went to Kitopi, you helped them launch Saudi, and then you worked with them for a brief period, and then you moved to Foodics, and you've been helping them with a different thing, with different things since then. Let's talk a little bit about Kitopi. How did that happen? Why did you leave it very quickly? I mean, you had a brief period over there, and then you went on to join Foodic. So talk a little bit on that. How did that happen?
Yeah, sure. I think the Kitopi journey was a very small journey, but small in terms of time, not in terms of achievement and work. I mean, they at the time they were just raising Series B and looking to expand to Saudi. So I was the MD for the country, launching the market. I think in a 9 months period of time, we did very well, launching like 7 locations in a complicated environment, right? At the time in Saudi, nobody knew what was a cloud kitchen, how even to get the Baladia license for it. I remember, for example, the Herfi founders, the Herfi owners coming to me and say, how did you get like 7 Baladia licenses in 6 months time? You know, even they were like impressed how we did that. So getting
And how did you
labor,
do
getting
that?
like again, like the idea is that's why the Saudi market is complicated, especially when you come from the UAE, for example. It's another word. You need to know the local market. You need to know the local players. You need to know the local environment, the local government authorities, how to work with them, how to deal with them. You know, it's not like just you apply for a license and you wait to have it, right? There's a certain number of steps you have to do. You have to show them that you are progressing. You have to relaunch. You have to have the right people talking to them. So that's why I always say, like, coming from UAE, Saudi is another word, and I think that's what I ask Mohammed Balut, I think the founder of Kitopi, when he gave me that responsibility to launch Saudi. That's what I told him. I said, Mohammed, maybe you will see weird requests coming from me, because the Saudi market, now I'm 5 years here, I understand the market. We cannot just replicate what has been done in the UAE, because it's a different word. Don't believe because there's a common border and it's the same geographical area that it's the same thing. It's another word. You cannot. You have to launch it as if you are launching Japan. You know, it's not like you cannot just expand. And you see, maybe except Careem, all other startups that have tried to come from UAE to Saudi in a normal way, just as a natural expansion, have failed because of that reason. So for us, we had, I would say, very localized strategy. We struggle to, again, like get just cooks, for example, because it takes you like 5 months just to get cooks, and we needed to open the first kitchen in less than 30 days, you know, for example. So we had here a very startup hustling. The word is hustling journey to get 6 to 7 locations live, to get the brands launched. We launched like more than 30 brands in this journey, which was like, again, a 24/7 journey at the end of the day, to be honest, except Jumu'ah prior. I think there was nothing else during the week. And alhamdulillah, we've been able to launch the business, to produce these locations, launch the brands, and launch the business. And I guess, I mean, Kitopi raising Series C from SoftBank after that was also because, again, we had the Saudi market up and running, because that was the biggest time at the time. So alhamdulillah, I believe we did a great job. For me personally, it was a short journey because I had a personal issue. My wife was in France, and we had a complicated pregnancy, so I had to go back. And it was COVID time even. So after that, the whole world was
Yeah.
shut down. So I had to leave because of that. But the 9 months I spent there was really intense, and I'm very proud of the achievement we did with all the teams. And be able to launch that market for Kitopi was a very interesting journey. I learned a lot personally, and I guess even the business learned a lot about Saudi, how to expand there. There were a lot of changes in the business model as well. So I think it was good learning for everybody, and it was a fantastic journey as well. And here it was pure startup mindset, hustling mentality, starting something from scratch, and bringing scale in just a few months was really like an amazing experience.
How was the contrast in terms of, I mean, you were coming from Jeeny and Wadi, where the resources were limited. You had limited amount of money to work with. And in Kitopi, it was apparently the opposite. You had a lot of cash to, go with. Yes, there were a lot of challenges in the Saudi market, but how did you deal with that? Because sometimes that also becomes a problem when you have too much money. So, how did you, as a leader for the Saudi market, navigate your way? I mean, in terms of dealing with a lot of cash in
No,
your
no.
hand.
The first thing, Zubair, is that we didn't have that much money. When I joined Foodics, they just raised Series A, and the cash
No,
was
I'm talking
short.
about
So, and it was
Kitopi.
COVID, by the way. Kitopi. Sorry, I thought you were talking about Foodics, but
No, I'm talking
no,
about Kitopi.
Kitopi.
We'll get to it.
Yes, of course, the company had money, just raised a fresh funding round. But again, like people, they see from outside that you raise money, so you have money, so you can burn money. At the end of the day, yes, you can burn money to launch, but you still have to produce your unit economics, especially the cloud kitchen market is, and I guess you know better than anyone, is something that where the unit economics are very tight, right? And you will be judged on your capacity to say, yes, I'm burning money today, but there is an horizon of profitability at some point of time. So if you are not like producing unit economics that made sense, so in a nutshell, if you have like 100 real order, basically, right? You're gonna have to pay like 20% to the food delivery aggregators because you have to not forget it's pure online business. Then you have like maybe 30% food cost, that's already 50% of the margin gone. And then you have like, like again, the rent, the labor, you have the utilities, etc. So the bottom line that you're going to do on an ideal world, if you optimize everything, is already very limited, right? So if you start having labor cost or food costs that start going through the roof, then it's extremely complicated to even prove your case, even to investors, and to say that I will be able to do 10% bottom line at down the road, right? So here, this is what you look at. You don't look at how much money you have. The money, basically you earn time with money. So you have money, so you can have more time to demonstrate this. But still, it does not mean that you can just spend it and you have like bottomless spendings, because it's useless if you spend a lot of money and you cannot show that reflection on unit economics and on your business plan. There is no point. So yes, it's a bit more comfortable with money. You can take more risks. You can build faster. For example, again, you can invest in capex to build your kitchens. You don't have to do kitchen by kitchen. You can do multiple kitchens at the same time. For example, you don't have to look at the whole cash flow cycle, and it gives you a little bit of peace of mind to focus on the business and the operations. But that's it. At the end of the day, if your P&L is looking bad, whether you have money or not will not change the equation. You're going to have money for 6 months, and then you're not going to be able to raise more money. So there is no point at the end of the day. So that's how I see it. Of course, it's a different business than Jeeny, where we were profitable and very lean. Here we had to scale, so we had to spend. So for me, I can adapt to both. It is very fine. But again, the Genie experience helped me always to keep that unit economics thing in mind. So this is how I was able to combine both. And of course, the scale element was much higher there. But I think we adapted quite fast. It's still like maybe more comfortable to work with resources, although you have to scale much more than to try to be lean all the time, because you always have that frustration where you want to grow more and you see the opportunity in the market and you see that you can push more on the throttle, right? So it's still obviously more comfortable with money in the bank, but again, like that's does not change the fact that you have to be efficient and produce proper unit economics.
Right. And how did Foodics happen? What did you join as, and how has your role evolved since then? Because I mean, you then became chief operating officer. You earlier served as executive director, and so how did the role evolve? Why did you join Foodics to begin with?
Yeah, for me, I joined Foodics. I mean, like a lot of people, you will ask these questions. They will tell you it's because of the founder, right? Because of Ahmed Zaini. I think as a founder, as a leader, he's very, I would say, convincing. People get convinced by his vision and his enthusiasm and his mentality. When you have a very hands-on founder that started the company by himself, pitched the first customers, when he talks about his baby, it's always more convincing, than anything, right? And the good thing with Ahmed also is that, again, like as a leadership guy, he knows very well where he's good at and where he needs support with, right? So he always trusts you in your domain of expertise. Does not believe that as a founder he knows everything already and is going to drive the whole business, but rather than this, he always lets you handle the topics where you are an expert and where he knows he has maybe some limitations sometimes. He has that humility and that smartness, because it's smart, it's intelligence at the end of the day, to say, look, you're better than me and this, please take it over and do your magic, right? So for me, that this is what I'm always looking for when I go somewhere, for freedom in what I do, because freedom always leads to accountability, right? So if you tell me, okay, you're gonna do X, Y, Z, and I do it bad, don't come and tell me you did wrong, because this is your plan, not my plan, right? So give me the freedom and the support I need to execute my plan, and then you can judge me on it. If I didn't do well, I will take the full blame and the consequence, and you can fire me. You can put somebody else that will do better than me. I have no problem with that. And actually, probably live by myself before saying, "Look, I'm sorry, I failed. My plan didn't work," and I live by myself. But at the same time, if I do well, then it is my success. It is my plan, and maybe I get the credit for that, right? And this is something that again Ahmed gives you as a space. So for me, this is why I joined Foodics. First as a director for acquisition, then director for acquisition and operations. So I had the whole customer journey under me, from sales to onboarding and customer success. And then as a chief operating officer, to still manage the whole customer journey, but also be in the leadership of the company. So being very active in the fundraising, in this overall strategy of the company, expansion in terms of product range, and where we want to go in terms of vision. So this is also how my role evolved, not only managing the revenue function, I would say, but also being on the top management of the company. Again, helped me again achieve the milestones we did after that. And this is also how my role evolved. And this is why I joined the company. And this is why I'm still here, because again, like, we have a great founder that is empowering his leaders and his teams, and always give us that amount of trust and freedom that we enjoy. And I guess this is when you were saying in the beginning that you don't have a lot of operators in this region. You have a lot of founders, but not a lot of operators. This is also because you don't have a lot of founders that have that mentality similar to Ahmed. Usually founders take all the space. They don't let anyone grow under them, right? So they have these founders and employees. I think, again, like you have a very few founders like Ahmed that can empower leaders under him. And this is also what he always what he says, and what he has in mind, that he wants to create leaders that will later on do their own stuff as well. So that mentality is very rare as well, and this is why we are all here. I think all the leaders of Foodics are here because of that environment and that level of trust and freedom that the founder is giving us.
Right. So since you joined Foodics, the company has raised close to $200 million, 170 million in a Series C, and then I think 20 in a Series B. That happened almost right after you joined. But how has the company evolved and scaled? I mean, obviously that is a lot of money. So talk about fundraising as well, because you were involved with that. But also walk us through the journey of scaling as a company in terms of, I mean, whatever the revenue numbers were back then to where you are today, and the products that you've expanded into. Because I keep seeing, I mean, I keep get a lot of Foodics on my LinkedIn in terms of feed, and I keep seeing Foodics launching a new product every few weeks, or adding something new for the restaurants, even in existing products. So walk us through the entire journey of, since you joined Foodics until this point, what has been it like in terms of the company?
Yeah, of course, of course. As I said previously, Zubair, money gives you time. It does not give you
Right.
anything more than time, basically, right? So the vision of the company never changed from the beginning. The idea is to be really a one-stop shop for F&B players. That's why we never expanded to retail. We were very focused on F&B, and the idea was really to say, look, you are an F&B business owner. Usually what you want to do a restaurant, you want to do your dish, right? You want to open a pizza restaurant, right? This is how it comes from. You don't say I want to open a small business. No, you say I want to open a pizza restaurant. So you have recipes, you have an idea what you do in the kitchen, but in reality, this is a real entrepreneurial journey, right? You have to deal with filing, you have to deal with suppliers, you have to deal with technology, you have to deal with payments, you have to. It's a whole company. You don't just cooking pizza. It becomes like 5% of your time at the end of the day. right? And you don't even have time to improve your recipes, and you don't have time to even work on that, right? Because you have 20,000 other things to do, right? So the idea is the vision of Foodics is how we can say, look, come with your restaurant idea, and the rest Foodics will provide to you. We'll start with the technology stack, we'll expand to the payment bit, but at the end, we want to provide you everything. Even maybe tomorrow, we want to give you that Baladia license or that CR, so you don't have to worry even about this. You just come with your recipe, and the business management side of things, we're going to cover it for you. So that was always the vision of Foodics. Of course, when you don't have no cash and you have to go slowly into that journey, we started with the point of sale. We built another couple of products, but this is the pace you have to go at. And alhamdulillah, we've been very successful in selling that unique product to a lot of people in the market. So that's one. But once you get the right resources for that, when you get that money, again, you are getting time. So you can accelerate the journey. So you can say, look, now I have money. I can have more resources from people, from product, from technology, from sales to be able to build more product and sell them to more people and sell them faster, basically, and accelerate that journey. But the journey never changed. So that sounds simple on paper, obviously. In reality, it's more complicated, right? So, because again, we were very, I would say, comfortable selling one product in one country. Now, suddenly you have to create a dozen product and start selling a dozen product in a dozen countries, right? So, which is completely different ball game. What you have to realize, Zubair, it's a SaaS company. Foodics, we are selling software, but it's a SaaS product, but it's not a SaaS company. So selling that product is a highly technical product. You cannot just put ads online and have a self-onboarding journey until you sell that product, right? I mean, it's not like you're not like selling Gmail, right? Where you can have the full online journey. So you need people on the ground. You need to have 3-4 demos with the customers before selling. The support has to be very hands-on. A restaurant owner will call you just to say, hey, my printer is not printing a receipt. The cable is broken. Come help me. Although this is not your printer, this is not your cable, it has nothing to do with your system, right? So that scale element is very difficult because we had to go from a, let's say, 150 people company to a 600 people company, right? And making sure all over the journey, the quality of service for the customer stays the same, the level of training of all the team stays the same. So imagine now you have a sales guy that is trained on one product, highly technical. So it takes 6 months to get it fully and to start being able to pitch it. Now you have another 6 products in your catalog, right? So how do you sell that, right? Is it the same person? Will you have another team at the same time? You cannot have 6 sales team or each one on each product talking to one single customer, right? So how does that work, right? You have 6 people talking to that customer, and then you have his account manager, and then you have the support talking to him. So you want to unify the journey, but at the same time, you cannot give all that knowledge, that expertise to one person. So this all the compromises you have to do. Of course, from a scaling team's perspective, hiring like 500 people, you have a lot of people that, again, were not meant for the industry. I don't like to say that there is a shortage of talent in this country or in that region. I don't like to say that because that's not true. People are very talented. They are eager to learn and to work. The problem is, again, it's a time element. You have to develop those people for them to become talents, right? So I don't like to say there is no talents. There are talents, but they are like early talents that you have to develop. And when you're hiring 500 people at the same time, how do you develop all those people? How do you spend time with each of them? How do you teach them? How do you do it when everybody around them is also new, right? That knowledge cascading is not happening anymore. So you have to put all these processes in place, streamline all these processes to make sure you have an engine running everywhere in the hiring bit, in the onboarding bit, in the knowledge bit. We created Foodics Academy, for example, for our employees to be able to learn about all this. How do you develop them? How do you assess them, etc.? It's very, of course, challenging, and you have not to be stubborn. You have to take right decisions. When you hire 500 people, there will be 150, 200 people that maybe are not fit to your environment, and by your experience that it will not be a good thing for them, neither for them nor for the company, to be stubborn there and try to integrate them at all costs. Maybe for them it's better to move somewhere else and have a better career for them, somewhere where the people will take time to develop them, rather than here where there's there's a need for a level of self training, self onboarding. You need to have a certain kind of mentality also to evolve here. So I'll give you just a simple example. If you are a new employee, you have an onboarding process, obviously. But again, let's say some weeks we had 30 people joining. So maybe the onboarding process has some flaws, right? Maybe nothing is scheduled for that employee. He just comes to the office. He does not even know how to talk to, who to talk to, right? So this happened. We're not going to hide it. But you have two types of people. You have one type that the guy will go and just sit to the next to any random guy, ask him, hey, what do you do here? What is your role? And we'll sit to the people and we'll try to manage his journey. And even though maybe he's not the most skilled person, with that mentality will always succeed. And you have another person that will sit on a chair for 1 week and tell you, oh, I didn't get an onboarding. I didn't do anything this week. So
Right.
yes, you can blame the company, of course, 100%. You can blame the company saying you guys should have a streamlined onboarding process and you should have put this in place, 100%. But at the same time, that employee does not have the right mentality to work in a startup space. Even if we had the whole process down the road for one reason or another, it will not fit the company culture and success. For me, when I came, I had no onboarding as well. But this is what I enjoyed down the road, that I went myself to talk to all people. I start discovering, I start understanding by myself. This is what excited me, Maybe had the normal training sessions, I would have fell asleep, and say, look, like cut the crap and let me just dive in the business, right? Because that's my mentality, because that's why I'm in the startup space, And you need people somehow that have this mentality. If people are waiting for you to be good as a company, to be excellent as a company, well, we will never be, because we're always fast growing, always launching products, always adding more people, always launching countries. Yes, we try to have that engine running to do things at scale. And we did hire 500 people. So nobody can do that, even an organized company will never do that. But it comes at the expense of, yes, certain gaps that are still existing until today in the knowledge, in the processes, etc. And how you fill the gap by hiring people that have that mentality and that will enjoy a little bit that fuzziness, right? And even at the expense of skills. So I have a few examples where we hired people, fresh graduates with no skills, and they became like managers and head and GMs in a few months because of that mentality. Because despite the shortage of skills and experience, they had this mentality where they could navigate. And we always like to empower those people and reward that boldness, that risk taking. But this is why you have to also hire based on mentality and not only skills or experience. And we had a few examples where, again, we hired people very expert in their domain, very seasoned people that could not fit because they were just not used to work in that environment. They need structured things, and they were always complaining that things are maybe a bit messy. But again, it will always be a bit messy. So you have to reduce the messiness level as much as possible. But at the same time, you need people that still enjoy a little bit of mess and will strive in it. So you have to do that double-sided thing to be able to scale at that level of scaling. And otherwise, does not work. If you imagine a universe where any company in the world can scale that much by streamlining processes and still have everything right and as per the book, that never happened in history. So I wish somebody can do it.
No,
But
no,
I don't.
I
So you
absolutely
need
agree with that.
so you need people fit for that. Again, like maybe if I bring Bill Gates in the company here, maybe it's gonna be a failure because the guy is not maybe used to work in such an environment. But maybe I take an ex car dealership salesman will fit much better than Bill Gates here because he will enjoy and he will strive in this environment, right? So this is where you have to be very understanding the environment you evolve in and hire the right people for it, while obviously trying to minimize the gaps that are coming from scaling. And as soon as possible, you have to iterate fast. Even in the hiring, firing, you have to iterate very fast because otherwise you're not going to improve this gradually. It's just going to become liabilities over liabilities, and you're not gonna be drowning in the ocean, basically.
So when you are hiring as a leader of the company, what is it that you look for, or what are some of the red flags that tell you that you wouldn't? Obviously, all of us make hiring mistakes. You can never be
Of course.
100% accurate all the time. As you said yourself, that sometimes you bring somebody onto the team, and then you realize a few months down the line that they're not the right person. They do not fit into the company. But what are some of the things that you filter for when you're hiring?
No, no. For me and for us, what we try to have in the company, it's quite simple. So it's based on two pillars, right? The number one is in we hire people that will fit with the culture again, like with the mentality. We hire people that are hungry, that want to work in such kind of context. As I said, like yes, we look at experience, we look at skills, but most importantly, we look at the mentality, how hungry people are, and mostly how much something is very important for us, how much ownership and accountability these people have, right? How much they want to achieve. Are they like output driven or results driven, performance driven, like we are, And this is what we look for more than, again, I would say skills or experience. And something that is extremely important here is to set up expectations. People need to know that you cannot just would say bullshit them and tell them you're going to come somewhere that is very mature and very organized and very process driven. No, you have to tell them you come somewhere that yes, we value what you will achieve, but of course you're going to have to do some part with yourself. You have to have that entrepreneurial mindset that is very important. If you are looking for a 9 to 5 job where you're going to be refreshing the same report every day, you should apply to the bank, and it's very important to set up those expectations and be very clear to the people, because you don't want to create that disappointment and that gap in expectations. Number one. So this is how we hire. The second part that is also, for me, the most critical, and that is reflecting on the hiring, is that you have to create a fairness environment in your company. Like good people, people that are achieving, people that are actually delivering things, they need to know that is the best company for them to be at. They need to know that maybe they will be promoted 2 or 3 times per year. They need to know that they can triple their salary in 2 years if they are achieving. And it needs to be the environment where they strive. Again, we had people entering as sales executive, left as VPs or as general managers, and we're very happy about that, because they have achieved and they deserved it. Okay, and this is what we want to promote. That sky is the limit. The more you achieve, the more you get rewarded. We're not going to cap you and say, hey, you can be promoted once a year and maximum you're going to get 20% increase and nothing more. So here you need to know that the best performers, it's the best place for them to be. At the same time, you need to make people understand that if you are here to be just, again, doing a 9 to 5 job, or to be lazy, or just to spend time, or to have a sexy name in your CV, it's not the right place for you. And they need to feel it from the interview side. They need to themselves realize that, no, in this place, if I'm not achieving, if I'm lazy, if I'm here just to spend time and I don't want to achieve and improve and make my career bright, it's not the right place for me. And they need to understand it from the hiring side. And this is what we want to convey when we hire people. It's like here, it's an extremely fair place. If you are hungry, you want to achieve, you need to come here. There's no discussion. But if you have a doubt about your motivation or what you want to do next, or I'm not really sure, I want to go to startups, or I prefer to stay in a corporate company, and my ambition is not to become CEO of that company, you should stay where you are. You should look for another job. And this is very important for people to know from the hiring, from the get-go, because this is extremely important. And this is how we choose our people. And as I said, and with the ownership bit, that also very important to say here. You're going to have to treat the company as your own company. Whatever you're going to have, just achieve the maximum possible. Be an owner here. Do more than what we give you, and don't worry, you will get rewarded, because this is usually the important thing for people. They are happy to do extra work. They're happy to do more. They are happy to produce more. But where is the reward? In a normal company, maybe you do a lot of things, and then the guy next to you sitting idle will get promoted and not you. And we would just want to make sure it's not the case here and that people know about it,
I completely agree with the piece of advice that you have sort of shared here in a subtle way. Is that especially for the new joiners in startups, that you don't have to wait for onboarding or work to come to you. You should go and take that initiative yourself, and that's the right kind of mentality that you should have as a new joiner, especially if you're working for a startup. Let's talk about Foodics scale. What is the company at today in terms of revenue or any other numbers that you can potentially share? The markets it is operating in, the number of products it operates, and if you can also compare it with maybe 2 years ago to sort of share what has been the growth like.
No, I think today we're proud to say that we almost reach around 30,000 locations that we serve from an F&B perspective. From a growth perspective, we are growing like I would say if you take like 2 years ago, all the numbers we have are double. You can say it's 2x at all level. I think today we're very close to be also profitable to reach our break-even point that we will probably reach by the mid of this year. So that's also a very important milestone for us. And again, from a range of product perspective, now we have like covered, I would say, everything when it comes to restaurant operations, from front of house, back of house, how to manage a restaurant. Now we launch accounting as well for people to solve that issue as well. That was like a gap missing. Now we're very focused on the payment stack, right? We want to make sure that restaurants are enabled on the fintech space. Today they have like a payment terminal from the bank. They have to download an account statement from the bank. They have to download the POS report and compare transaction by transaction, which is very annoying. So we're very much focused on the fintech space, cash flow management for the whole restaurants, which is the pain point. Like you can see, all restaurants when they close, they take 1 hour just to reconcile all their bills, etc. And that's just what you see. Like probably some QSR groups have like armies of accountants just to do basic invoice reconciliation. So that's what you're trying to simplify. And again, from an expansion perspective, now on the cloud point of sale market, we are like market leader in 9 countries: in Saudi, in the UAE, Kuwait, Oman, Bahrain, Jordan, Egypt. So we have like that penetration in GCC plus Egypt that is now very high. We have significant market share in all countries. And here we're trying to, again, consolidate and make sure we are a regional player, right? And not only a Saudi player. Our revenue outside Saudi is growing very fast. It's growing like 50%, is doubling, year over year. Which is very important for us, again, to show that we have a regional play as well, because now also we have international investor on board. And again, when you look at the global level, maybe the GCC as a region is more important than being only in one country. And we are doing that consolidation as well. So alhamdulillah, honestly, the journey is great so far. The growth is still going extremely fast, and we're getting close to profitability, which is again also a very important milestone. So all the lights are green, alhamdulillah, and we hope to do another great year in 2024 after the big success in 2023 as well.
Right. So we're not going to get any revenue numbers, right?
Well, you can say it's difficult to give you revenue numbers, but let's say that for a SaaS company, ARR is very important. Our objective is to reach like $100 million ARR by the end of 2026, basically. So let's say we almost halfway now. So that gives you
Okay.
a good idea.
Okay.
And I think, to be honest, when you look at the region, I think the closest to us is very far away. So that's a big pride for us as well, that we've been able to reach that scale that was quite unprecedented in the region also.
Right. And what's the revenue mix like, right? Like right now, I'm assuming majority of the revenue still comes from the software, the POS. And what are some of the other revenue streams that you've been able to develop that are contributing a good chunk of the revenue at the moment?
Yeah, so it's a very good question, Zubair. So essentially, we have 2 types of revenue. We have the SaaS revenue, the software revenue, that is divided between the point of sale, which was like 100% of our revenue like 3 years ago. Now on the SaaS revenue, it's more like 60 to 70% because we have our online suite that was very popular as well, where we give our merchants web ordering, mobile apps, and self-service kiosks solutions. And we have now the other products we launched, like accounting, like our waiter app as well, and like our whole restaurant management suite, like kitchen display screens, and all the suite that is accounting also for now a significant part of our revenue. That's from the SaaS software part. And now we have a big boost in our payments revenue. So we quadrupled, so 300% year-over-year growth on payment revenue with our Foodics Pay payment solutions that we give to merchants. So we used to give them like terminals, like the banks. Now we have a full suite of integrated products. So we have our customer display screen that can accept payments directly without the need of an external payment terminal. Our waiter app as well can accept payments. So the waiters in dining restaurants, they don't have to go back and take a terminal and bring it to you. They can accept directly payments there. And we have also launched our Foodics One solution, which is an all-in-one mini POS for retail as well that help us increase our payment revenue. So now we quadrupled that payment revenue this year. And we believe that by the end of let's say mid 2025, payment is going to be around 50% of our revenue as well. So we're growing very big here also. And again, so now we have a very balanced, I would say, revenue mix, and that we are very happy about. But for us, it really like achieving that vision to say, when I'm a restaurant, I will take Foodics for my whole stack is very important. And that's why now this year, we're going to be releasing more products, obviously, but we're really working more on the merchant experience, how to bundle all these products into one unified and nice merchant experience where you're not going to have to switch between products and have products from left and right integrated, which is our strength. We integrate even the whole ecosystem, but how we can build as Foodics a unified experience for restaurant owners to have one platform to go, not 20, and for us, even from a revenue mix, to have revenues from all the experience from SaaS, diversified SaaS plus payment will be very good for the company. But the good thing is that it follows the merchant experience. So we always have to go back to basics to say that our revenue is following what we provide as a value to the merchant. So we did that. That's number one priority.
Right, right. Now, because of the diversity of these products that you are trying to offer to a restaurant owner or somebody who wants to start an F&B business, you are trying to compete with multiple players in different domains. You're trying to compete with players in payments. You're trying to compete with players players like Jahiz, even for example, who have started to offer similar solutions with the help of some acquisitions and even their own products. So, what do you make of the entire landscape? I understand that you claim that Foodics is by far the number one POS solution for F&B players in most of the GCC plus potentially Egypt as well. But what do you think of the competition overall?
Yeah, that's also a good question, Zubair. I mean, let's start with the competition, like of Jahez, for example, with their acquisition of Mirin, etc. Look, something very important, and for me, I figured out also, when I came to Foodics, for me, it's a SaaS company. I came from cloud kitchens, grocery delivery, very operational businesses, right? So I came here, I'm like, oh, that's SaaS. For me, that's almost, holidays. Selling software will be very easy, right? Because you don't have to have warehouses or drivers or ground operations, right? It's going to be super simple. In reality, it's not the case. Like a point of sale, for example, cloud point of sale, it's a 9 years now of monthly or bi-weekly releases with improvements, bug fixing, new features. And, it's a very deep tech product. It's not something you can copy like this. And everybody has tried. Banks have launched their own. Software houses have launched their own. Now, Jah has acquired the player, but it's not that easy. Like the depth of our product today is extremely high after 9 years, and you cannot just copy like this. Yes, when you are like from outside, you will feel like, oh, okay, a go there is just something where you are punching orders and that's it. It's not. How do you cater for inventory? How do you cater for suppliers, cloud kitchen, taxation, menu management, online integrations? So it's a very deep tech product. So first, you cannot compete like this. You cannot come from nowhere and compete. Even the product that I've acquired, Merin, that is also a local player, and they have done great. To be honest, I'll pay a big tribute to them. They have done great, but they launched after us, and maybe their product is also less deep than ours. Although they are selling much cheaper than us, still they are not, would say, gaining market share versus us, because it's not that easy, and people need that product. It's a direct hit on their profitability of their business, and it's not easy. So that's on our core product competition. Now, how we see the rest, and it's a very right question. Like, so you say that on the point of sale side, it's very difficult to compete because it's a deep tech product, but you want to compete with other segments, right? So it's a bit like contradictory what I'm saying, but actually, no, we have that humbleness to say if people cannot compete us on the cloud point of sale part, it will be very tough for us to compete on other areas of the market. That's why when we are creating this offering, we are working with a focus. Either we want to do an external acquisition or white labeling of a product, and work with experts. So for example, the e-commerce suite that we built, we acquired a company that was 5 years in the market doing only this, only e-commerce solutions for F&B players. So they are specialized on that, and they know how to build this. Same with accounting now. We're working with a partner that has more than 20 years accounting experience with F&B customers. So we didn't build it ourselves because we have that humility to say, if we believe Jahez cannot build a cloud point of sale, why would we be able to build an accounting software from scratch? We don't believe it. So our job is to take the best in class in the market, and our job is to work on the merchant experience. How does that product integrate into our whole suite to have the best merchant experience possible? But that said, we have also a big marketplace where we work with all the other accounting solutions, with all other online ordering solutions. For us, as I told you in the beginning, Zubair, is to make sure you can go through Foodics for all your stack. So if you believe another player has a better mobile app to offer to you, take it. There's no issues with that. Take it, we'll integrate it for you, and it will be integrated with Foodics, and you're going to have a smooth experience. What we believe is that because we are Foodics, because we also have the other products, if we build an online, like a mobile app for you, it will be better because it will be native, integrated to the stack, and we will build a very nice experience for you. So we believe it will be better, and you should buy it from us. But if you prefer the competition, there is no issues, absolutely no issues. You can take it from our marketplace, or you can even bring your own. We will integrate it for you, and you will have the whole tech stack running. It's just that for us, we also believe we can build you an even superior experience as well. After that, you choose whatever you want, as long as you are with Foodics for all your stack. That's all what matters for us, because like this, we are sure you are integrating the whole stack works all together, and there is a consistency there, because as a point of sale, we are the source of truth for the whole business. So work with our marketplace partners that are, people say they are competitors for us, they are partners, that's perfectly fine. So that's how we see the competition, and that's how we think also about that vertical expansion. We don't want to do the mistake to believe that we can do everything. That's not true. We have a core expertise that we are doubling down on, and for the rest, we are working with best-in-class players in the market that have more expertise than us, even on in terms of length of expertise. And we are creating a merchant experience around bundling those products, and see where the value comes from the synergy of these products and of the whole ordering and restaurant management experience all in all.
When are we going to see Foodics on Tadawul?
Look, that's a good question. That's a good question. For us, to be honest, that's probably the I'd say the preferred option that we have right now. But look, for us, we don't have a corporate target. We have a business target, right? Again, as I told you, our business target is to be a 100 million ARR company and a profitable company, right? We know that once we achieve this, and we are on the right track right now, once we achieve this, we will have, I would say, all options open from a corporate side, right? IPO would be very sexy for a market that is always looking for technology companies and strong technology companies to be listed, and we believe we're one of them, if not the main one. Other options would also be open, self-financing, private equity, going to further fundraising. So for us, what's important is to be a strong business, a strong, scaled, profitable business, so we can have all the cards in our hands, right? We don't want to take a solution by default, right? The good thing that we have the trust of our investors. We still have good liquidity from our previous round, so we have the luxury of the time. As I told you, money buys you time. So we have the luxury of the time to build that solid business. Yes, the Tadawul is option number one. For us, there is a big excitement towards the capital market, the stock market, and the whole. And we see amazing excitement from the government, from the regulatory entities, from all the investor landscape for us to list, and they are waiting for that IPO. But we want to list at the right time, when it makes sense, when we get the right valuation, when we get the right funding needs, because raising money from the public market, you need to have a solid plan as well to do that. You have to gain your investors' trust, and also internally, we want to be the best. We want to be best in class company from a governance perspective as well, because we take the matter very seriously, right? Being on Tadawul, we don't want to be a startup on Tadawul. We want to be the best also from investor relations, governance side as well, even better than traditional companies as well. So for us, we have that, alhamdulillah, we have that luxury, I would say, of time to take the right decisions, because we have options open. But yes, Tadawul is option number one for us. So I'd say stay tuned. We're
Right.
working
But
on.
does that come after the 100 million ARR, or does it come before that?
Yeah, most probably it will come. It will come before. But again,
Right.
the good thing with SaaS business is that the trajectory is very predictable, and you can really forecast revenues, etc. So it will come at the time where we are 100% sure that we're going to hit that milestone, because of the growth pace of the company, and because we are profitable. So yeah, it will come before, but after we also are perfectly on track to achieve this, and which we are already. But we want to be even closer to that event as well, to show that there is no doubt about not only the solidity of the company, but that it's by far the strongest investment in the stock market overall, right? We don't want to be the best startup in the stock market. We want to be the best company in the stock market, right? Yeah, we want to say that between Aramco and Foodics, you have to buy Foodics, right? We just don't want to be only, the best startup. You get my point? So for us, that's very important, and we have everything we need. We have our investor support, we have the team, we have the journey that can validate that. But we want to make sure that this is the case, and for that, again, we have, I would say, the luxury of the time and of choosing our moment, not to rush into that. And as I said again, we want everyone to be happy to invest in Foodics, and to fight to invest in it. So that's what we're trying to build.
Right. I understand that you're not ready to spill the beans, but I mean, from what you've shared, I'd sort of, I'd like to assume that it is probably going to happen in the next 12 to 24 months. But yeah, let's wait and watch. Obviously, you cannot comment on that, and I obviously respect that.
No, so you can be
One
sure.
last,
You can just be sure, Zubair, that we're gonna list at the best moment. As I said, when we are 100% sure that any investor's money will be better invested at Foodics than anywhere else. So that's what we want to do, and this is why we take our time. So when we list, everybody is certain that this is the best way to put their money. This is the best place to put their money in. That's very
yeah,
important for us.
that makes a lot of sense. The final question, Jamal, you've spent a lot of time in Saudi. You've been an operator, for a good part of your life. You've helped companies in Saudi start and scale. You've helped Foodix grow to where it is today in a very important position. And we see that there are a lot of startups trying to expand into Saudi because of it being the hottest market, if I may call it that, in the Middle East at least, and across different emerging markets as well, even if we group them together. what would be your one piece of advice to a founder who is entering Saudi from, let's say, Egypt or UAE, Jordan, or even Pakistan? One piece of advice that you would like to share with them.
You have to understand that you need to give to the country as much as the country will give to you. Don't enter Saudi because you see it's a big market, and you want to claim the time, or you just want to enter that market, and stay in Egypt or stay in the UAE, and think this just claiming that expanding to Saudi. You have to give to the country as much as the country will give you in terms of opportunity, business opportunity, market size, and potential valuation, right? So this is, for me, very important. If you want to expand to Saudi, be in Saudi, work with Saudi people, train Saudi people, understand the culture, understand how people think, understand what is their consumption behavior, understand the vision, what's happening in the country. If you don't understand Vision 2030 that is driven by Prince Mohammed bin Salman, you will not understand how to succeed in business in Saudi. You have to understand that people here want to prove a point for the country. Me, I came 8 years ago. To be honest, I'm fighting half for me, half of for the country. I am not a Saudi, but because of the 8 years I spent here, I understand that here people are trying to prove a point for the country. They are trying to prove a point that the country is one of the top leading countries in the planet, that the talents that are here have nothing to be shy of versus Europe or versus the US. They are trying to show what the people can do. And if you are coming from UAE, from Egypt, from global markets, you have to understand that. You have to dive into the culture, into what people have in mind, because that's very important. Saudi is one of the only countries in the world where people may buy a local brand, although it is more expensive, for example, but because they want to support, they want to show the value to the world. That's what happened with Foodics when we went in Series C to international investors. We wanted to prove a point. None of the international investors we had today, no one from the Silicon Valley ever invested in Saudi. And we could have had the money locally if we wanted, because we had great support from everyone, from PIF, from all the local VC ecosystem. But the idea was, say, no, let's not take the money locally. Let's go to the US because we want these people to invest in a Saudi company. So it was not even the interest of the company. It was the interest of the country, of the market, to say, we want to prove a point for Saudi Arabia, not only for my company. So that's why, to all the founders in the world and in the region, I want to say, when you come to Saudi, don't think only about yourself, your startup, your time, your valuation. Think that you have to give to the countries. You have to understand the mentality. You have to see which impact you're going to do for the countries. And this is how the country is going to pay it back to you, by empowering you, giving you the opportunity to scale your company, to scale your startup. But again, it will not work if you are coming just with the mentality to say, I'm going to expand to Saudi because there's a big potential. Of course there is, but give back to the market as much as the market is giving to you, to the people, to the government, to the ecosystem. You have to understand what's happening in this country, the revolution, the history, the historical milestones that are happening here, and you have to be part of it, and also accelerate it, and want the country to succeed. Otherwise, you will not succeed yourself as a startup. So for me, this is really the advice I would say. Don't expand to Saudi just for the market opportunity, but consider it as a new startup. Consider it as a Saudi startup that you are launching. Come to the market. Don't spend 2 weeks in Dubai, 1 week in Saudi. Come here, rent a flat here, go to the people, eat in the breakfast place in the country, go to the places where local people go, talk to local people, share your international experience. People, you will be very hungry to learn about what's happening outside as well, and they will teach you a lot, and you will understand how the country works, and you will understand how to grow your startup. And from outside, it's not going to happen. It never happened. It will not happen in the future as well. If you're having that mentality just to say, I'm a UAE company, or I'm an Egyptian company, I will open an office in Saudi and throw an MD there, you can just shut it down. There's no way you're going to succeed. So as I said, give to the country and to the vision of that country and to what these people are achieving, your piece of the puzzle, your energy, your motivation, and you will benefit yourself. And as I said, for me, after 8 years in that country, as I said, because of that, I am fighting as much for myself as to prove a point for that country. I'm always fighting with my French friends to explain how great is the country, how hungry are the people, how talented they are, as if it's my own country, even more than if it was my own country. But because of that, because I've been with the people here, I've seen how excited, how motivated, how talented they are into promoting the country. So it was like like it came to me as well. I'm fighting as if I'm a Saudi, and I'm very proud of that at the end of the day. So this is my advice that I would give to any founder coming here.
Yeah, you've obviously spent close to 10 years over there. You are more local than some of the locals there, I'm sure. So it's a brilliant piece of advice. Thank you so much, Jamal, for taking the time to do this. I really enjoyed the chat. There's so much for every listener to learn there. And I'm sure everybody watching this episode will enjoy doing that. And thanks once again for taking the time. It was a pleasure to have you.